9/11, I want to bring on our good friend Tomas Manglona of the KUAM news team. Good morning, Tomas.
Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Jason. How are you guys doing?
We're doing pretty good, doing a lot better now that you're here. And Tomas is going to handle this next interview here on the link. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. Tomas Manglona from the KUAM news team. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. The Harry S. Truman Scholarship Foundation recently announced that there are 62 new Truman Scholars selected from 845 candidates nominated by 328 colleges and universities, a record number of applicants. And we're grateful to be joined today by one of them representing the island of Guam, Kehani Mendiola. Kehani, welcome and congratulations.
Hi, good morning. Nice to be here. I'm very excited especially to meet you, Tomas, a past Truman Scholar. So I'm very honored.
And so bring us back to when you heard the news. Where were you? How did you feel? Who did you tell?
Okay, so it's actually a funny story about how I found out. Dr. Ronald McNinch at the University of Guam, he had called me and he asked me, oh, could I come to the SBPA Dean's office at the University of Guam to take a photo with the president and the dean, like a finalist photo, because Guam this year did have 4 Truman finalists, which is a milestone itself. And so, you know, he asked me to come down there and if I could bring my family. And I honestly just thought I was there to take a finalist photo. I had no inclination, you know, that it was anything other than that. And when I got there, you know, I saw President Christ, I saw Dean Annette Santos, I saw Vice President Dr. Anita Enriquez, and, you know, just some of the other staff and faculty there. And still, it didn't occur to me that this was anything more than a photo until Dr. John Rivera, the Truman faculty representative, he asked me, oh, can we take some candid photos? And he handed me this book and he said, oh, can you read this passage in the book? And so when I was reading the passage, I wasn't even fully comprehending what I was reading. I thought that I was talking again about the Truman Scholarship and, you know, some information about that until I got to the last part that said, would you please share the good news? The University of Guam, Kehani Mendiola has been selected as a 2021 Truman Scholar. And I couldn't even read out that last part. I was just already in shock and disbelief that, wow, this is a dream come true. And I can't believe that I'm here. So, you know, I just feel deeply honored and just very grateful for this entire experience and for the Truman Foundation for believing in me.
Wow, what a story! I can't imagine what you were feeling in that moment. For those who don't know, the Truman Scholarship is a public service graduate fellowship. It's a living memorial to President Truman. And Kehani, I wanted to ask a little bit more about you because you are also part of the KUM family, having worked there for a bit with KUM as well. Tell us a bit about yourself, your background, your passions, why you applied to the Truman Scholarship.
So my name is Kehani Mendiola. I'm 24 years old and I'm from the village of Pidi. I have a very active 2-year-old son named Cohen. I am double majoring at the University of Guam in criminal justice and public administration. I also work as a teaching assistant to the public administration and legal studies chair, Dr. Ronald McNinch. And I'm also the president of the university's public administration and legal Studies Society, the secretary of the Alpha Phi Sigma Criminal Justice Honor Society, and a member of the Blue Key Honor Society. And so really my passions fall within criminal justice and prison reform. You know, that's something that I've always been very interested in the law since I was at a young age. It's how I basically planned out my education to align with the goals and aspirations that I have in those fields. And so when it came to finding out about the Truman Scholarship, originally I was a transfer student. So I went to Guam Community College and I received 2 associate degrees from there. And then, you know, I did take a break in between my education and I worked at KUAM, as you explained. And when I got to the University of Guam, I met Dr. Ronald McNinch, and he was just so, supportive, and he really wanted to help me with my education, with my career, and he was just trying to steer me in the right direction. And then he told me about the Truman Scholarship, which honestly, I did not know what that was originally. And I'll admit at first when he was speaking about it, oh, it's this national scholarship for public service students, and I think you'd be perfect for it. I think you'd be great. At first, I was kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, me being a full-time mother, being a student at the time, I was taking 7 classes and, trying to just finish my education. But the more that I learned about the Truman Scholarship and what it stood for and what it entails, it was very enticing to me. And I think that through my life and everything that I've done, I've realized that, a lot of the growth and development that I've had is because I had the courage to go out and try new things that terrified me originally, but regardless of whatever the outcome was, it always paid off. And so it was really just, okay, what is the worst that can happen from trying? I think that it would be a greater disservice not to try than to give it a shot.
And so let's talk a little bit about what it means. And so it's a community, it's also financial support, it's public service oriented. What is it? What are you able to do now because of this Truman Scholarship?
So the Truman Scholarship, it provides a $30,000 financial award towards your graduate studies, and this can be applied to any field as long as it pertains to work in public service. And they also provide leadership training, career counseling, elite internships in the federal government and with nonprofit organizations, and really just giving you this solid support system that is comprised of these individuals who all share this common devotion to wanting to help people and to really improving the world. And to me, I think that's the greatest benefit of all, is you get to learn from them, you get to be mentored by them, and I'm very excited of what to come from this opportunity. And from already meeting some of the previous Truman Scholars from Guam, I can definitely understand why this is so special, because you can really see the heart of all of these individuals that are a part of this foundation.
And so tell us about the process, because it's a pretty lengthy process, and the interview, is really known to be so hard and so difficult to go through. So given it's also a pandemic, I believe you didn't travel to Washington, D.C. for your interview. Yeah. So what was the process like amid COVID-19?
So the application process itself is very rigorous. And Tomas, I know that you are aware of this. And usually there's 3 rounds to it. So first of all, you have to be nominated by your institution, and they only allow up to 4 slots. So depending on your institution and how many students are interested in applying, you may have to compete at that level first just to get a slot. And then once you do obtain a nomination, that's when they will open the official Truman application for you. And doing the application itself is, it's one that requires a lot of time, a lot of dedication, and reflection and introspection, because they're basically asking you, tell us about your life, tell us what you've done, and then also tell us, what do you want to do? What do you plan to study? What are your plans after graduation and 5 years from that? And so you need to list down all of your academic, your professional, and your community-based activities. There's also an essay portion, and rather than just one long essay, it's several mini essays, and you basically have to answer the questions within just a few hundred words. And on top of that, you also have to provide 3 letters of recommendation from people who can attest to what you've done, and write a policy proposal. So I think the application itself was just very taxing. Like I said, I am a full-time mother. At the time when I started this application, I was taking several classes. So there was a lot of time management that I had to do in order to complete it. And I feel like by doing just the application, though, I benefited a lot in my own personal growth and development, because I got a better sense of who I was and what it was that I wanted to do. And so, after that, that's when, after you submit your application, then it's reviewed by the selection panels at the Truman, and these are people who are federal judges, past Truman scholars, university presidents, just well-respected people in our nation. And, I think learning that I was a finalist was very surprising in itself. And I was just so elated to find out that I had made it to at least the second round, because they received 845 applications this year, which is the most the Truman has ever received. And from that, they cut it down to 193 finalists. And I think the fact that UOG had 4 finalists from the university, from Guam, from the university, is just amazing. It really goes to show just the generation that we have that are going to be moving into this field of public service. And so when it came to the interview, when we found out that we were finalists, things got very serious from there. Preparing for the interview, it's a lot of prep, a lot of mock interviews, and doing a lot of research to sharpen up your knowledge in terms of your policy proposal and the field that you want to enter. And even with all of that prep, it's still, everything's up in the air. You have no idea what they're going to ask you. They could hit you with something that you had never thought about. And that's why I'm really grateful for Dr. John Rivera, our faculty representative, because he put on mock trials for all of the finalists, and he was hitting us. He did not spare us. He was hitting us with all these questions that we did not even consider. And I think that's really what helped us even more prepare for the interview. And then the interview itself, like you said, we didn't have the chance to go to Washington, D.C. as normally we would. So we had to do it virtually. And I'm just grateful that UOG, was just very supportive during this time. They opened up the SBPA Dean's office, even though the campus was closed, so that we wouldn't have to experience any technical difficulties. And so the interview itself would just flow more smoothly. So I'm very grateful that, they are very supportive of their students and their endeavors. And doing the interview, I have to say it seems very intimidating, because like I mentioned, all the people who are involved in this process are very well respected, are revered, and you are basically going to appear before them and answer their questions. But I think that taking this opportunity and seeing it as not something scary, seeing it as your chance to really showcase yourself and to convey all of the messages and who you are that you just couldn't really show on paper. This is your time to shine. And so I think taking that into heart, not just for scholarship interviews or for the Truman, but for any interview or any interaction you have is, really good for you.
Yeah, let's talk more about that interview and what you wrote about in your application, because, the announcement, your biography said you're an aspiring Air Force judge, advocate general. You're passionate about prison and crime reform. Can you explain why why you're passionate about those issues and what you hope to do in the future and for Guam?
So I have always been very passionate about criminal justice and prison reform, because, in my life, I have known people and even family members who have entered the system and have been incarcerated. And so for me, there is a connection to this issue on a very personal level. And so I think that with that personal experience combined with the education and research that I've done into the issue, I'm able to look at all of the problems that we face from this double-sided lens and try to come up with viable solutions to them. I know that here on Guam, our courts are backed up. Our prison is overcrowded and dilapidated. We have little to no treatment programs for the people that are incarcerated, and our recidivism rates are rising. And I think it's also important for people to know how that is also interconnected with social issues that we face. And so for me, it's really being an advocate for these people who have been underserved and underrepresented for a very long time, as well as their families and their children, because I think it's very important to know that that stigma, that political and public stigma that we have against people who have offended, people who have been incarcerated, it does not just only stick with them, it transcends onto their families and to their children and greatly impacts them. So for me, you know, it's a very important cause, and that is, you know, what I want to work towards. I want to work on bringing our community together, on shifting more towards restorative justice and implementing those necessary rehabilitation programs that we need to stop this constant cycle of recidivism and crime. And yes, I do want to go into the military and be a judge advocate general, because I feel that, you know, having that experience, that worldly experience where I'm going to be exposed to more cultures and more backgrounds and similar issues, but on a grander scale, would be very beneficial, and as well as to learn more about the new innovations that are happening in law. Those are things that those are ideas and principles that I can bring back here and see how we can adopt them to fit the needs of our community. So ultimately, I do want to return back to Guam, and I would like to work in the Attorney General's office in the prosecution and family law divisions, so that I can be a part of that process and try to ensure that justice is being served appropriately, and to also help devise policies that will address the societal problems that we face.
Thank you so much for that. Just our last question before we wrap up here. You know, you're a mother yourself. What's your advice to young islanders out there as they pursue their own goals?
Okay, so I have 2 words of advice. One for the students that are interested in applying for the Truman. First of all, if you want to apply because it's prestigious and you want to have something to put on your resume, this is not for you. Okay, the people at the Truman Foundation, they will be able to see right through that. They will be able to see where your true motivations lie. But if you are passionate, if you really do have that desire to be a public servant, and you're willing to commit your career and your life to it, then by all means, go for it. You know, do this. And I think on that note as well, my second piece of advice to everybody is, don't be afraid to try. You know, don't be afraid to take these opportunities. I think that's the one thing that stops us from doing the things that we want and following our dreams is fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of embarrassment. But by allowing yourself to feed into this fear, you know, you really are doing a disservice to yourself and to possibly the world. And I really like this quote from President Truman: do your best, history will do the rest. So that's really all we can do, right? Is to take a chance, to put our best foot forward, and to see where that takes us. So I hope that everyone will keep that in mind and go and pursue their dreams.
All right, thanks so much, Kehani Mendiola, one of the newest members of the Truman Scholars family. We want to thank you for your time, and we're so glad that we could celebrate you this morning on The Link. And Chris and Jason, wanted to throw it back to you, and thank you again, Kehani, and congratulations.
Thank you, guys.
Finally, plans made for you.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m.